Hello everyone, Wolf is here back with another video, and today we'll be answering the question whether it's possible to beat The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt without using signs. For those who haven't played the game, signs are not only used in combat, but they also can be used as dialogue options and in order to open doors, or are required in order to proceed forward. However, I'll be trying to beat the game without using any of them whatsoever. So let's begin with the rules. The first rule is that I am not allowed to use any signs at all. So that means that I cannot use Igni in order to start a fire, I cannot use Art in order to push away an object, or Axii in order to confuse an enemy or mind control them. And of course I cannot use them in combat as well. The second rule is that I'll be playing on the Deathmarch difficulty, because neither me or Geralt are cowards, and playing on anything else but Deathmarch will be a coward move. And rule number 3 is that cutscenes do not count, because Geralt does whatever the hell he wants and I have no control over that. And so I am not failing the challenge if he does something that violates any of the rules. So that now we're done with the rules, let's begin with the challenge. Our journey begins as you wake up from a terrible nightmare where Vesemir was trying to force you to do the tutorial where you have to use all of the signs. However, you refused to do so and he was very mad at you, chasing you with a sword like a madman. You wake up next to him, so that was pretty awkward, so you decide to run away from him. You then have an awkward conversation about stuffed unicorns, but thankfully then you're attacked by a bunch of ghouls that were actually pretty helpful, because you got to avoid the whole stuffed unicorn conversation as much as you could. Now the ghouls were pretty easy to deal with, they are just some basic enemies, you do not need any signs to deal with them, so that's great. And after you annihilate them, you're faced with the griffin for the first time. You try to attack it in order to protect the villager, and of course Vesemir gets injured because he's useless. How could you get injured from one hit, man? Come on, this is ridiculous. So now that Vesemir is injured, we had to take a detour from our search for Yennefer. And you may ask us, why were we searching for Yennefer? Well, I'm glad you asked. The reason for that is because we were playing a game of Gwent and I won fair and square, and she didn't pay me 5 crowns, and we cannot have this. She had to pay her 5 crowns back and we had to find her, no matter how much it hurt us to do so. Anyway, you meet the 3 little Temerian boys and they want to fight with you. And this is the first time we get a dialogue option where we can use Axii. However, as the challenge states, we cannot use signs for any reason whatsoever, so unfortunately for them you have to beat all 3 of them up, and after which you meet with the Nilfgaardian captain and he sends you on a quest to destroy the griffin and get the village rid of it. You are not required to use any signs when you search for the hunter, nor when you search for some buckthorn, which leads you to the griffin boss fight, where again you don't need any signs in order to defeat it. The griffin is defeated, so you can return back to the Nilfgaardians to claim your reward, which is some information about Yennefer. Meanwhile, you're also attacked by a bunch of drunk people in the tavern, so when you kill them you can easily claim the tavern as your own. Unfortunately though, you're then faced with the Nilfgaardian guards, who are flanked by Yennefer, the person who owns you 5 crowns. You couldn't believe your luck. She was finally right in front of you. You can reclaim your 5 crowns. Unfortunately, she was surrounded by the Nilfgaardians and they were so many that without the use of signs it was impossible to defeat her, and she even went to my face to taunt me. I couldn't stand for that. However, she made a proposition to me that if I followed her, she can repay me back not only 5 crowns but 50. I couldn't pass on that, so I abandoned Vesemir and left with Yennefer. Needless to say, Vesemir wasn't exactly pleased about it. However, I had bigger fish to fry, as I was facing down the Emperor of Nilfgaard himself. He wanted me to find his daughter, and since that was a pretty hefty task, I said that 50 will not be enough and asked for 500 crowns. Being the emperor, he immediately accepted that, so I had to get to work and find his daughter. My search began from Velen, where I found some notes left by a Nilfgaardian spy. They weren't exactly helpful, so I decided to ask my good friend Kira if she knew anything about the emperor's daughter. Unfortunately, she didn't know anything. As I was about to leave, she asked me for help, and I could not refuse her in any good conscience after the show she made for me, and so we went to the cave where the mysterious elf was hiding. However, there was no elf in there, and we just went there in order to kill a few rats. And for the rat's nest, all you have to do is use some bombs instead of using Igni to destroy them, and that's all you have to do in the cave. Afterwards you go to Kurback Bog, where you can play some hide and seek with the little kids and help Johnny get his voice back, because he's an idiot and he lost it somehow. How do you lose your voice, Johnny? At least he proved some use, because he got me to talk with the ladies of the wood, who wanted me to kill a old spirit in a tree for some reason. I don't know what their beef was, but I didn't really care. I just killed it. I didn't use any signs like a boss and met with the crones personally. They told me that if I didn't start to use my magic, they would come for me and get it, but I told them that they could try and I'll deal with them personally. They seemed pretty afraid and left me alone, after which I went to meet with the Bloody Baron. We were old friends from back in the day when Temeria was actually a country and not just a state ruled by the Nilfgaardians. He told me that his daughter and wife had gone missing, but that wasn't really my problem, so I went off to talk with the Peller, and there were some guys that wanted to kill him, so I had to sweet talk them into not killing him, because I needed him in order to achieve my plans and make the Baron talk. So in order to do that, I had to get his damn goat to return, because she ran away because of the dudes. Afterwards I met with this random dude who wanted to fight me for some reason. Of course I absolutely annihilated him, because I had no mercy for idiots like this. And the Baron had gotten drunk and absolutely torched his village. I understood why he was mad, like his daughter and his wife ran away. However, that didn't stop me from beating him to a pulp as well. Afterwards he calmed down and begged me to find his daughter and wife, and something in my heart broke, so I decided to help him, and he told me that he had yet another daughter that he just threw away in a shallow grave as she was just born. What the hell, man? How did we go from 0 to 100 so fast? And I had to deal with this now. Why did I agree to this? The Baron wasn't very helpful, so I forced him to pick up his child demon, and we were constantly attacked by quite a few wraiths, but at least I didn't have to use signs towards any of them, because they're the regular wraiths and not the annoying ones that need Earden in order to damage them. However, when you're done with the wraiths, this is where the problems begin, because you have to calm down the botchling. And the only way to do that is to use Axii, and we cannot use Axii, so unfortunately for the Bloody Baron, his child had to go. Like, I had to kill the botchling, and I wasn't even sure if I could kill it without using signs, because the battle would be pretty tough. However, eventually, after just bullying it for like half an hour, I managed to kill it, and the Baron wasn't exactly pleased with me. He said that he thought we were friends, but I didn't really care. I did my job. Like, I'm about to find his daughter and his wife, and so he shouldn't be mad at me. I did what I had to do. I know that he was mad about me killing his other child, but he already did that himself, so it wasn't my fault. Anyway, this leads us to the Peller's ritual, and I was absolutely terrified about this part, because you have to constantly light up the pyres in order for the Peller to do his thing, and so I thought that if I bring my trusty torch with me, that would help, but unfortunately the torch did nothing, so I had to use bombs. And considering this quest comes very early in the game, you don't have that many bombs unless you've done some additional exploring, so with only 2 bombs and 2 more if you meditate, so that means 4 bombs. You have to keep 3 pyres lamed constantly during the ritual, and just in order to start it you begin with only 1 bomb. So considering the fact that one of your lights immediately goes off the moment the wraiths appear, you're kinda screwed and it's impossible to complete. However, if you return with more bombs, you can absolutely do this part without any issues and without any signs used. You just need to use 6 bombs, and when that happens the Peller will be able to finish his ritual without any issues. Afterwards he asked me if I was going to help him do Forefathers Eve, and since he helped me I agreed. However, first I had to find the Baron's daughter and wife, and I found a few villagers who told me where they were. They were very helpful. I also found it immediately, but I had to return to the Baron to tell him the whereabouts of his family. This leads the Baron to go into Kirkbag Bog, and unlike usual I decided to do a few side quests with the challenge, and return to Kirkbag Bog is perfectly doable without using any signs whatsoever. However, with Forefathers Eve there is a very important thing that happens which absolutely blocks you from doing it without using signs. The good part is that this quest is just a side quest, so you do not have to complete it in order to beat the game, so we are safe. And the part I'm talking about is the end of the quest where you have to burn the Peller's father's body, and in order to do so you are absolutely required to use Igni, because apparently using a fire bomb on the guy doesn't ignite him for some reason. Like, look at this, how is this not a guy who's on fire? How does that work? No, you have to use Igni. And so unfortunately Forefathers Eve is the first quest that we cannot complete without using signs. I awkwardly left and went to Novigrad, where I met with Menge, after which I met with Triss and the King of Beggars. They were pretty nice. I also helped Triss around the city because some guy tried to scam her. We dealt with the guards and I was able to go back to Sigiruben. I met with the boys, and while they were very happy to see me, we were immediately attacked by some few random people who were working for Junior, which was quite annoying. However, we easily dispatched of them even with our towers still intact. I then proceeded to ask Dijkstra for help to find the Emperor's daughter, but he refused to help me unless I found his stupid treasure. So I reluctantly agreed and enlisted Triss's help in order to find it. She wanted to get freaky and offered me some handcuffs, however I was concentrated on the mission, so we decided to use them in order to trick the witch hunters. This part is still pretty easy without using signs, regardless of which way you want to do it, either killing the witch hunters or doing it covertly. However, something you must not do is helping Triss burn down the witch hunters hideout, because in order to do that you need to use signs and we don't want to do that. Get Junior is another simple quest where you have to just fight with many enemies, which requires you to use no signs at all, especially if you're being more careful. After which you rescue Riku, you deal with the casino and with Junior's hideout, and you face Cyprian Wily himself one-on-one and deal with him personally because of what he did to you and your family. So afterwards I decided that it was good to tie some loose ends, so I went to do Redania's Most Wanted quest because Radovid helped me in order to fight Junior. And this is one of the most tricky quests out there, because in order to do pretty much anything in this quest you have to constantly activate power crystals, and the way you do that is by using art, and we cannot do that. So essentially after literally the first door I found I couldn't proceed forward because I couldn't use art. However, I decided to get creative and think of a way of which I could go downstairs without using the power crystals and whether or not that would actually work. So I found a path where you can actually go down without dying, and everything seemed to go well. I went into the next area without any issues. I even killed the Neckers without them bugging or anything like that. However, now we get into the next area with a stupid power crystal. Oh, by the way, I couldn't pick the power crystal which was dropped by the Necker's place. And so the only way I could think of is jumping off again. And unfortunately, jumping off in any way didn't work out. Which means that you cannot do Redania's Most Wanted as well without using any signs, because for some reason Geralt always died even before he hit the ground, so the game pretty much doesn't want you to succeed on this one. Speaking of impossible side quests, next we have of Darien Darkness, where everything is okay until the literal final moment of the quest, where you have to burn down the barrier that's protecting the sword, and the way you do that is only with Igni. Because again, for some reason, just like with the Pellar's father's body, the damn firebomb doesn't do anything. It's pretty much useless and cannot be used in order to light the flame. For some reason, I don't know why this is the case, but for some reason it is. So after going through the whole quest, I had to just go back and restart and not think of this stupid quest as well. That's the third side quest you cannot complete without using signs. At least in the main story things were going well. I rescued Dandelion and then decided it was a good idea to help Triss with her quest line. And while A Matter of Life or Death was pretty easy to complete without using any signs, Now or Never was a bit more tricky. Because you see, when you start the quest, you're given the option of either leaving behind these two mages or help them get out as well, and the one mage doesn't wanna go, so the only thing you can do in order to convince him is use Axii. You cannot even beat him up. What's that? Why can I just not beat him up? So essentially, if you decide to help them, you are put in this endless loop where you have to use Axii, otherwise nothing else will happen. So what you have to do is just abandon them, go and save Oliver instead, and after which the quest is pretty straightforward. You go through the dungeons and you're at the ship where you say your final farewell to Triss. Kira's questline is also pretty easy to deal without using signs. This is a bit tricky though, because you have to deal with the Pesta, and the way you do that is by using some Moondust, because otherwise she can get intangible, so you need the Moondust in order to damage her. After which you have to get Graham, and then the quest ends. You meet with Kira, have a lovely dinner, and it's finally time to go to Skellige because I wasted too much time in Velen. Now in Skellige nothing really interesting happens, you just get drugged. You have to deal with Yennefer again, you have to help Krach with his children, you have to throw a baby into a furnace, then after that you have to fight with a freaking ice giant, and if that wasn't enough you have to witness a massacre and then execute the former Queen of Skellige, and last but not least, crown a new leader of the whole realm. Because why the hell not? Now that all this drama is dealt with, you have to deal with some actual important stuff, and that's shock therapy. And for whatever reason, nothing works. Even your sword clashing against the metal doesn't freaking make a sound for some reason, which is absolutely nonsensical. So unfortunately, unless you use art, you cannot complete this quest as well. So this is our first quest that we fail in Skellige, but thankfully it's yet another side quest, after which we continue the Skellige quest line and nothing really important happens. You deal with the quests normally, after which Yennefer asks you for help, and so you have to go and help her as well. You go and capture the Djinn with her, and after which, due to her still not returning your 5 crowns, you realize that you no longer have any feelings for her. She doesn't take it well, however it's time for you to go back to Kaer Morhen in order for you to lift the curse off of Uma. You go to the Circle of Elements where you have to use bombs in order to light the flames, after after which Lambert would do the rest of the ritual. Everything is prepared for the ritual, and you finally meet with Avallac'h, who sends you off to the Isle of Mists. The Isle of Mists was easy, absolutely no science required to do. Next is the Battle of Kaer Morhen, where you have to fight with so many enemies, and thankfully at no point are you required to use any science against them, so you just have to fight with the enemies. And unfortunately at the end of the battle Vesemir was killed, and I felt that was all my fault, because maybe if I was using the science he was trying to teach me, I would have been strong enough to help him and to save his life. However, it was too late now, I could do nothing about it. I had to bury my friend, my father, but that wasn't going to be it for me. I was gonna find the Wild Hunt and absolutely annihilate every single one of them with my sword and with my bare hands. I first went after Imlerith. He was tough, however I was tougher than him and defeated him, after which Geralt in the cutscene used both Art and Igni in order to defeat him, but they do not count because they happen in the cutscene, so Imlerith was defeated. Next up is battle preparations, and this quest is split into 4 parts. The first one is where you have to get Philippa Eilhart. You wrestle her to the ground. Her fire elemental is pretty easy to defeat with some northern wind, after which you have to go around and thank Ciri's friends for helping her. And the only interesting part here is the stealing the horses bit, where you have 3 options: either beat up Ciri's friend, which you will not like; the other option is to just be sneaky when trying to steal the horse and not wake up the guard. And if you wake the guard up, even if you beat him up, you will have to use Axii on the horses, so you cannot beat the quest if you wake up the guard. So you either have to beat up Ciri's friend or not wake the guard up, after which you have to sneak into the Oxenfurt prison, and here things are pretty straightforward. You meet with Margarita and rescue her without any issues whatsoever. Next is Avallac'h's part, and aside from the ice world, nothing really interesting happens. In this quest you only have to be careful on the ice world because you're constantly freezing and you have no use of Igni in order to get your health back up, but if you're being careful enough you can easily deal with this quest. You meet with Gales, after which you explore Avallac'h's hideout. No signs are required during all of this. And then you go to find the Sunstone. Again, no signs are required to do that. And it's finally time for the final battle, where you face Caranthir one-on-one after Ciri beat him up a bit. You defeat him without the need of any signs, mostly because he absolutely annihilates his own elementals. After which you face down with the King of the Wild Hunt himself, Eredin. You defeat him as well without the use of any signs, which means that after the final sprint where you face down Avallac'h and Ciri tells you her plan, you complete the game's main story without the use of any science, which means we've completed the challenge. It feels so nice to have finally completed one of these. I know that this is much easier than the Nokio runs, but still it feels good to be able to complete a challenge. Now that the challenge is complete, I'll show you the quests that do not require any science in order to complete, and the only ones I actually failed were Ardarian Darkness, Redania's Most Wanted, Shock Therapy, and Forefather's Eve. These ones are absolutely impossible to do without using science. However, the main story of the game is completely doable without using them. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see each other in the next video. Bye!